Hi guys, this is Alex with MuseThemes.com. Today I'm going to be showing off the expandable footer which was recently shown in the Manhattan theme. We can see here at the bottom when we click on the footer it expands up to reveal a sitemap and some social icons like so. So let's jump over into Muse and see how we can create this ourselves. So we're going to want to navigate to the master page here like so. And I've already created just a little template at the top to give the whole page some context. So the Accordion widget is actually built into Muse. So we're going to want to go to our widgets library, go to the panels tab, and we're going to want to drag and drop Accordion onto the page like so. Now we can see that the widget loads with its content, and I'm going to use Muse's new feature to clear all styling and widget contents like so that we have a blank canvas to work with. So I'm instantly going to drag this to both ends of the page so that we have it at 100% width, which is what we want. And I'm going to change this text in here to our own text, and I'm going to use MuseThemes.com in this example. Okay, so I'm just going to style this text up a little bit. I'm actually going to move it in from the edge slightly by about 30 pixels. I'm going to move it down from the top by about 5 like so, and I'm going to change the font to Open Sans Light. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with the look of this so far. So as we can see in our example over here, we have this expand footer with the arrows. Now this isn't actually done inside Muse, this is actually an SVG, and you can create your own SVG in a program like Illustrator, like I've shown here, and I would recommend creating it with a width which is identical to the width of your footer here. You can find this out by going to transform. So if you create it with a width of about 1160 and roughly 30, and this should work perfectly for you. Now once you've saved these the collapse and expand as an SVG, we can go into our footer here. We want to navigate to the normal state and go to fill options. We then want to go to add image, and we can see that I've got my expand.svg and collapse.svg. Now when we're in the normal state, we're going to want to see the expand button. So I'm going to select expand like so. Okay, as we can see, this is added in the expand footer arrow here, but we're going to want to change this to scale to fill, and then move this to pin to the right hand side, as this is where our text and arrow is going to be located. We're then going to want to go to the active state, because when it's active we're going to want to show the collapse footer icon and not the expand. So I'm going to change the fill so that it shows the collapse.svg, and then this should all be good in the browser. Now a quick note to add is that we do need to go into the widget options like so, and we need to select this option here which is can close all. And what this allows us to do is it allows the content area below here to collapse like so. So we can see that it was here, and then when we click this it's gone, and this is how we get the expand functionality. So I've just noticed that this text that we added earlier has now disappeared. So I'm going to just change this to white so we can see it like so. Okay, so now I'm going to start customizing the content area below here. So I'm going to give it a fill. Make sure that you are in the normal state here. Sometimes it switches to active, so just make sure you're in normal. And we're going to want to give it a fill color, and I'm going to use this color here like so. Let's just check that's applied across all states. It has. That's all good then. Okay, next I'm going to want to add some navigation items, so some sitemap items down here. Now to do this I'm just going to move this down a little bit so we have a bit more space to work. I'm going to create a text box here, and in it I'm just going to type out some of our pages that we might have on our site, so services, about, contact, etc. So I'm just going to do 4 for the moment, and I'm going to just star them up, making them open sans, and I'm going to put them as a white so that when they are on this background they'll show up. Okay, so I'm just going to resize this a little bit so it will fit, And I'm actually just going to drag and drop, and you'll see that the area gets highlighted. I'm going to drag and drop, and I'm just going to put them into the top left hand corner of this widget here. I'm going to expand so that this spans 100% of the widget and about this far out roughly. Now this doesn't look as good because it's a text. Again, it's going to be all clumped up in the top left hand corner. So I'm going to use the text tool here and the text panel, and I'm just going to style it. Now remember, we moved this across by 30. I'm going to do the same here, so I'm going to move this across by 30 pixels so it lines up, and then I'm going to move this down by about 15 or so we can see that they group out as well. Okay, so now we've done that, I'm actually going to want to make this a different color so we have those different columns as we saw in the preview. So I'm going to go back to our selection tool, make sure this is selected, go to fill, and I'm going to choose a different fill, and we can see that this has now changed color like so. Okay, so this is looking all good. Now remember, we wanted those 3 columns like I just said. Well, we've got one here at the moment, and then we've got a second one here, but we don't have 3. So the way I'm actually going to do this is I'm going to draw out another text box. I'm going to insert it here and change the color like so. So if we get a new text tool here and draw a new text box, approximately, let's say that width, okay? And then we just drag and drop it onto our widget here. And then we can move it up a slight bit, okay? And then expand it down and adjust it accordingly. I'm then going to change the fill. I'm going to select this fill this time, so we can see that we now have different fill on all 3 segments of the footer. So I'm actually going to add our social sprites widget into this footer here. So I'm going to go to our library, I'm going to type in social, and we can see that the social sprites widget comes up. I'll drag this onto the page, and I'm just going to delete the background here so that we can see the ones that we want to insert. I'm going to resize these by dragging and holding shift, and we'll just make them a bit smaller. That looks pretty good. And then we're just going to want to do the same and drag these down onto our footer like so, and I'm going to align them roughly to the middle. We can move the state transition off to the side. That's all fine. Okay, so we can now see that this is collapsing and expanding. We can also see that the collapse and expand buttons are working correctly. So the last thing to do is to put maybe a little bit of contact information like a phone number in. So I'm just going to quickly do that here. So let's say contact information, and then we might want a phone number like so. That's just an example. Maybe a mobile number like so. I know those don't look too well formatted, but for the moment we'll leave them. And I'm just going to style this up like so. I'll quickly change them to open sans light. Okay, and again I'm going to change these to white so that they can show up on our background here. So I'm just going to resize this down a bit, and then I'm going to drag and drop this into our footer like so, and it should display quite nicely there. Okay, so this looks like we've pretty much got our footer constructed now, but there is one last vital step that we need to take to make this to work. So the whole reason that this works is actually because we use a pinning method to get it to expand upwards. So we're going to want to collapse our widget here. We're going to want to drag and drop down to the bottom like so. With it still selected, we're going to want to pin this to the middle bottom of the browser, and this will allow it to expand upwards. Now let's go to preview in browser, and we'll see if everything's worked out okay. Okay, so as we can see, here we have our footer. Now I've just noticed a problem, which is we've got 2 little white lines appearing at either side. Now this can be a common problem which I've found, and there's an easy way to fix it. So if we highlight our footer here like so, expand it out, and in the normal state we want to go into fill, use the color picker here and select your footer. and then we're going to want to repeat this process in the active just to ensure that it's applied across all states. Okay, I'm going to preview this in the browser again, and now we should see it looking perfectly. Okay, yeah, so now we can see it spans the full width of the browser, and then if we click our footer here, we can see that it expands up, and we can see that our widgets are all working and everything's looking pretty good. Now obviously you can style this footer in any way that you wish to and just make it look personal to your own. You can change the colours, etc. But that's pretty much how we get the functionality of this sliding up footer at the bottom here. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and as ever, if you have any questions or queries, don't hesitate to drop us a note. Until next time, goodbye.